everybody, welcome back to my workshop and welcome back to my garage. Today is video number 6 in my Pango Music Flying V P90 kit. And in today's video what we're going to be doing is going through final assembly of the guitar. As a reminder, this is a sponsored video by Pango Music, so I just want to say thank you very much to them for sending me the kit and allowing me to do the review on it. So if you're interested in buying a kit, there's a link in the description below that will provide you with a discount when you purchase the kit. It also sends a little bit of money back to me. It doesn't cost you anything extra and you get the discount to boot. So let's dive in, get this thing assembled and see what we came up with. So the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and get my tuners installed. We did all the pre-fitting on this before, so it's a lot easier to get the tuners in now, because if I try and put it in this way, you know that it's the wrong way because the hole's facing the other way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set these in and line them up at the moment on the back here. That way we can start our screws. There we go. All the tuners are in. What I'm going to do now is go ahead and get the set screws, get those snug down. I'm not going to tighten them completely yet. I'll get those in, and that way the tuner can't rotate when I go to tighten the front bolt on the tuner to clamp it down. So then I'll get that, and then I'll come back in and finish up the final tightening of those pilot screws there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start these screws. If you remember when we did the initial install on these and did the mock assembly, we went ahead and put a little wax on the screws before we put them in the hole. We're going to do that same thing now, because the guitar has went through the finishing process since then. So a little bit of finish could have built up in the holes. Just a little bit of candle wax, that's all it needs. I'm going to put them all in, that way I can go ahead and maneuver the guitar a little bit to get them tightened. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to run them down until they're snug, then I'm going to back them off a quarter of a turn. That way I know that it's good and positioned and that my tuner is going to be in the right spot, but I still have some movement with it now so it can seat when I put the front nuts on it. Now we're just going to go ahead and install the fronts. You always want to make sure you get these hands started first, that there's no resistance. So the main reason for wanting to start everything by hand before you put a wrench to it and tighten it down is these are usually made out of a cast aluminum or something like that, and they're very easy to cross thread and strip. So I always make sure that I run them down by hand and that I can have good thread engagement without any resistance. That way I know they're on the right threads, and then I can come in with my 10 mil. I know the tuner's not going to rotate because I've got it snugged at the back. And then just give it a quick look, make sure everything's still straight like it's supposed to be. The tuners are still in line. As you can see, these tuners are still in line the way they're supposed to be. Now I can come back and go ahead and tighten these back ones. You don't have to be over tight with these. These aren't holding anything down. These are more like an anti-rotation, if anything else. It does help secure the tuner, no doubt, but it's primarily there to keep that tuner from rotating. There we go. Tuners are installed. So let's go ahead and get the front string retainer on. Again, we did all the pre-drill on this so we know everything fits. Even though we did grease the screws when we did the initial assembly, I'm going to go ahead and do that again. Again, just like I said with the headstock, just in case any finish or anything got down in there in the holes, it's going to help it go a little bit smoother. At this point of the build, you really want to be careful with your tools. It's very easy for a tool to slip and mar the surface. On this guitar, it's not going to be that, it wouldn't be that bad because it's a natural surface and be very simple to repair. Just sand it back, especially with it being an oil, hard oil on as well. I just sand it back and then go through and hit it with a little bit more finish and it'd blend right in and look the same. But if you've got a high gloss finish or something like that, you definitely want to be careful as you're going with the tools around it, because you don't want the tool to slip and mar the finish of the guitar. Also, with putting this on, you'd want to make sure, especially if you were using a hard finish or a gloss finish, you really would want this be taped in place almost to where it wouldn't move as you're tightening it, because if it does move, it's going to scratch the surface of the guitar. If you got a press to press these in, that works so much better. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get them close down to the surface, and then I've got something inside that I'll shoot, that'll hold it to where I don't bang into the wood. All right, now I'm just going to get something that I can put on these to push them the rest of the way down in. So what I've got here, this is a handy little tool, and this allows you to install ferrules. It's got two different sizes, that way it helps guide it. This is used in a press to press this down. I don't have a press, but what I can do is I can take, because I don't want to hammer on this pin because that'd damage it. So what I can do is just take a 10mm socket, slide that over, and it gives me the perfect surface. So I wanted to make sure these were snug right down to the bottom of the hole that they're drilled for, because if not, the string tension on this would cause it to pull in, so you'd have tuning stability issues for quite a while until it decided to pull all those ferrules through, where it's just as easy to make sure you set them properly right at the beginning, and then you're done. The next thing we want to do is get our bridge pins installed. Now, a couple things you can do, a couple things to remember on this, or one basic thing to remember that your ground that we drilled, or that's here, we've got to fit a ground wire through here. And what's going to happen is, that way we ground the bridge to the guitar. So I've just got a bit of wire here, bared about a 1/2 inch on the end, and then strip back. And then I fillet it out. I'm going to bleed that through. So I've got the wire splayed out in the hole. So now what happens when I put this bridge pin in, that's going to push down on the side of that wire and ground it to the side of the bridge here. So there's really not much to it after you push them in. What I've done is I've put the bridge pin in it, the height adjust pin, into this sleeve, and I'm going to run it all the way down. That way what I can do is I can use the mallet now and tap on that, because that's sturdy enough to push it in. But you can see they go in quite a ways before you even have to worry about anything like that. Now just to get them that last little bit. Thing to remember there is always use a rubber headed mallet. But now what I've done is I've got my bridge pins seated down all the way. My ground wire is installed and grounded to the bridge now. Now let's just do a trial fit, make sure the bridge still fits. And it does, drops right on. So the bridge is in the right position. So the next thing we're going to be working on is the pickups. We're using P90s in this guitar. Here's our neck pickup right here. What I'm doing is I've got some hard foam. I mean, it's not hard, it does compress. For P90s, they don't have an outside ring on them like a humbucker does, that you can mount it that way with the springs and have adjustment. So basically with the P90, you've got a couple different types. There was the dog ear P90 where you didn't have any adjustment at all, because it just dog ears right down to the cover. Or you can use this type of P90, which doesn't have a mounting dog ears on it. The mounting screws go through the top of the pickup, down through and into the body. So I put some foam in there at each end of the pickup. That way, as this pickup goes in and I tighten the screws, then it's going to compress down on that foam. If I needed the pickup to come up a little bit, with this foam I still could do that. I could just loosen the screws and that foam would expand out, and that way my pickup would raise back up. You want to install your neck pickup first, because the wire usually goes through the bridge pickup cavity into the bay. If you did your bridge pickup first, you wouldn't be able to thread the wires through for your neck pickup. So I've got them there, and I'm going to thread them into here as well. And I've already done the pre-fit on these. This one already has wax on it, but I am going to put wax back on my screws again as I go down through. There we go. Going down in there now. The good thing is, usually if you do your pre-assembly right, you get these holes lined up. It's really easy to put the pickups in after the fact again, because the holes are already there, and it will find it very easily because there's not a lot of room to move in that cavity. We'll adjust proper height on them when we do the setup of the guitar. There's the neck installed. Now let's install the bridge. One good thing about P90s is they're basically a single coil. Well, they are a single coil, but it doesn't matter which way I go when I place it in here because the field doesn't change with that, not like with the humbucker. Normally with the humbucker, you want the adjustable pole pieces closer to the bridge. With the P90, you don't have to worry about that. Just placing my foam under there, making sure I was getting it in the right spot. Pickups are installed. Well, we got the big screwdriver out and everything. Let's go ahead and get the strap buttons installed. I did not put this in the typical middle of the neck back location. I put it up on the horn. You'll see it in just a second. And there we have it so far. The next thing to do is get the pick guard assembled and everything wired up. We'll get that installed, but that's the next step in the process. It's time to go ahead and start getting the pick guard wired up. So what I'm going to do is we're going to pan down. We're going to get the volume, tone, and the three-way switch installed on this, and then we'll start on with the soldering process. When you get ready to do a wiring job, whether it be wiring in a new pickup, changing a tone pot, or installing a whole electronics like what we're doing right now, it's a good idea. Just go to Google and Google, guitar wiring diagrams or two P90 wiring diagrams, and it's going to pop up a bunch of different sites on there. Some of the ones that I use extensively, the Bare Knuckle site for bare knuckle pickups, they have a great site. Seymour Duncan also has a great site with a lot of different wiring diagrams on it. ToneWriter.com has a bunch of stuff on it to where you can go in and get a lot of different wiring diagrams for different wiring configurations. So it'll walk you right through the process. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and pan down and get all the electronics installed in this pick guard and get it ready to solder up. So this wire harness came pre-wired for the 2 volume and the tone control. And it's good wire, it's good solder joints on there. Good job of soldering it all the way around. Looks really good. Everything's nice, and it looks like good solder joints on everything. So what we're going to do is let's go ahead and get this installed into the pick guard. Now, we know that when we installed our pickups, the red lead was our bridge. So this one here. Traditional wiring on this would normally be neck, bridge, tone, just because that way it's, the volume corresponds in location where the pickup is. I always wire mine, because I use primarily the bridge pickup, I always wire this as bridge and that is neck. And then that'll be the tone. And that's just nothing but personal preference on the way that I like my volume control knob to be and where I like it to be at. That's why I wire it the way that I do. These might stick up a bit far. We might put something on the back. These, we'll see in a minute how high up the knobs stick. Oh no, that's going to sit down there pretty nice. Yeah, it's a nice distance up for the knob. So let's get these in here loosely. There is some extra wire and we'll be tying that up to get it out of the way. That's no problem at all. So what I want to do is I want to orient these to the best way possible that's going to give me the most advantage with wiring and everything. And I want to wire the switch to where when I wire it, the bridge will be down, neck will be up. But we've got that to where it's straight up and down. Now you can see how handy this little tool is. It grips onto that neural nut very well. There we go. And now we're going to get ready to start soldering this all up. So what I'm doing is I'm just shortening these wires up right now. This is my neck pickup. It's going to go to this top post on the 3-way switch. The bridge pickup is going to go to the bottom post. Then the hot wire is going to go to the middle. And I'm going to do the same with the black hot wire that's coming into it to make it fit better as well. So I've shortened these up. Like I said, for the Neck pickup, it's going to go right to here, into that lug. Let's do the bridge pickup first. It's going to go right there to that lug. Get soldered in. The black lead, which is the common, or is the hot wire to both, is going to get soldered right into the middle, like that. And then the neck pickup is going to get soldered into the switch. What that's going to allow is for all the volume pots to work based on the switch position. Then the pickups will be wired directly to the pots. So I want to bring you in and show you what I just did. What I've got, and this way I'll just kind of walk you through it. My three-way switch, my bridge pickup is going to the bottom lug, and I've verified it when I operate the switch that that's going to be the bridge position. The center lug, which is the common between the two, goes to my tone, and that's going to piggyback into the input jack on the hot side. Then I've got my neck pickup soldered to the top lug. From the ground, I've went ahead on the switch. I went ahead and installed a ground wire. This is going to go to the ground on the input jack. So I've got these two. So basically all I need to do to remove this pick guard when I go to do it and remove the output jack to change it, I only have to remove 2 solder joints from it. And I'm leaving a little bit of extra wire there just in case. So this wire here is the common ground between all 3 pots. So what I'm going to do when I'm ready to install this pick guard into the body is, you'll remember I put the ground wire that's attached to the bridge. That ground wire is going to attach to here as well. Then I'll trim that up, put a little bit of heat shrink on it, and tuck it out of the way. That way it's neat and tidy. This lug right here is going to go to ground. This lug right there goes to the hot. So what I'm going to use is, because yellow is hot on the pick guard, I'm going to go ahead and use yellow to tie into that. I needed a little bit longer on the black. I didn't have any extra black wire, so what I'm doing is I'm just using the bit of the red wire that came off the harness, and it's going to go red to black, but it won't matter with that. So let's go ahead and get this soldered up. Here's my ground. And now let's solder in the hot. There we go. There's my ground and my hot soldered in. I'm going to go ahead and trim off the excess. And I'm going to put a little bit of heat shrink around the ends on those. There we go, a little bit of heat shrink around the tabs, just to help prevent any shorting or anything like that. Plus it's just a neater installation. Remember, like I said, the black wire is going to go to the red here. That's my ground. And then the yellow wire to the yellow. So I'm going yellow to yellow here on my pick guard. That's my pick guard attached. And then here's the ground attached. Or excuse me, that was the hot wire attached. Now we're attaching the ground. Alright, here's a pretty good view of it. You can see I've got my bridge wire going to my bridge pickup volume. My neck's going to my neck pickup volume. I've got these soldered together. I need to put the heat shrink back on that one. And now all I got to do is connect this common ground, and then everything will be done. Now with all that done, I can just tuck the wires in. Make sure none of them are underneath the wood. I'm getting ready to... There we go. Before we do anything though, I want to make sure that the switches are working and the pots are working before we screw that down. And a quick way to do that is just with a multimeter. Because I have everything hooked up now, what I can do is I can just take a cable, plug a guitar cable in, make sure my volumes are up. And now just by going to the hot, the ground, and the pin, so I don't know if you noticed it or not, but when I put the multimeter on through the cable, the readings were just going crazy. So that gave me an indication that something wasn't quite right with the wiring. So what I did is I took it in, I plugged it into an amp, and I was getting a really bad static feedback the whole time it was plugged in. So that kind of led me to believe that I was in a ground loop situation. Something in the ground wasn't quite right on the electronics of the guitar. So I went ahead and I stripped it all back to nothing, and I rewired it, not using the wire harness that they provided. I used all the wire they were provided, but I just moved wires. I just resoldered it a little bit and changed the way the ground was happening, and that eliminated it. When I plugged it back in, and I'll show you in a minute how to get the readings on the pickups. The pickups are reading perfect now, the way they should be. Also, when I plugged it into the amp, it was completely quiet. I got volume adjustment on both my pickups, tone adjustment on both the pickups in the selections that they were supposed to be at, whether it be neck, middle, or bridge. So let me go ahead and bring you in, and I'll show you what I did on the guitar itself and change the wiring. Not a lot changed. The basics of the wiring is still the same, but I eliminated some of the grounds and I reestablished some different grounds. So let's pan down here to the guitar and we'll take a look at it before we get that pick guard put in. So I don't know if you remember. Well, you do remember. It's on the video. If you need to see it, you can just backtrack a little bit for it. So each one of these wires had a shielded part and the hot part, and they grounded all those wires together. What I did is I eliminated those grounds except for it's going to the switch, but I eliminated the ground here off this wire where it was traggling out. I eliminated the ground off all three of these wires to where they were in that common junction. I left them soldered to the pots, and then what I did is I linked the three pots together, and then I grounded my bridge to a pot, and I grounded my input jack to a pot. So now what we have is the input jack's grounded to a pot, the bridge is grounded to a pot, all three pots are grounded to one another, and then the power is going to whatever pickup is associated with it. So as I was going through final assembly on the guitar, my camera died. I didn't realize it had died, so I finished a lot of stuff before I realized the camera was done. So for that, I'm sorry, but here's the finished guitar. I think this came out really nice. I really like the natural wood finish on it. That oil finish that we put on there and then that wax that we put on really makes a big difference. The one thing I do want to go over relating to this is, and it was referenced earlier in this video, you'll remember the multimeter was going all over the place when I was trying to check the resistance of the pickups. I'd already checked the pickups individually, and I know that they were good pickups. I was getting good readings from them. And then once it went in the guitar, the readings kind of go all over the place. I usually like to take that reading at the guitar through the output jack just to see, because that'll give you a pretty good indication of how your wiring is. And like we found in the video, when I went back, I had a really bad ground loop with the wire, so I went back and I just desoldered everything, resoldered this harness up the way I would have normally done it, and it cleared the problem right up. This is the first time I've had that issue with any of the Pango harnesses, so I think this one was kind of just an anomaly. All the other wiring harnesses I've gotten have been really good, and I haven't had any issues whatsoever when I've been putting them together. So let's go ahead and pan down, and I'm going to show you how I check to get the pickup readings now that everything's together and functioning. So basically what I'm doing is I'm just plugging an input jack, or I'm plugging a cord in to the output jack. And then when you're checking resistance, it doesn't matter if you're positive, negative, or whatever, but so one lead against the shaft and the other lead against the tip. And you can see I'm in my bridge position on the switch, and that registers 7.22 on that one. Go ahead and go to the neck position, and that one's 6.71. You'll notice how much steadier the multimeter is this time. It's not climbing up or climbing down. That was a good indication, like I said, that there was something wrong with the wiring. So it's always a good idea to check your pickups before you install them, and then again after you get them installed. That way it'll let you know if there's any issues at all when you're doing, before you even plug it into an amp. Well, that's going to do it. The guitar came out super nice. I really like the way it went together. It really helps that you do that mock assembly before you start applying the finish. That way you're not getting drill bits or anything like that near the guitar after it's had the finish installed. And it makes for putting the guitar together much easier at the end. Please, if you like what I'm doing, click like, click subscribe, follow along with the channel, see what I've got coming up. And until next time, thank you for stopping by the channel, and take care.